Welcome to a Nothing from Nothing production. Hello, everybody. This is Mark Christopher with Bill Turley, and this is the Junction podcast, a podcast about growing up in Brooklyn in the 1970s and 80s. We're hoping to protect the names of the innocent as well as the extremely guilty, and there were plenty of those. Well, here goes. Welcome back to the Brooklyn Junction. Bill and I are here in our wonderful summer abodes, which is me in Long Island and Bill in...
I'm in the Outer Banks of North Carolina on Hatteras Island, which is basically a sandbar. I'm out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. I have to remind myself of that every once in a while.
Well, this episode is going to be about amusement parks, specifically with some focus eventually on Coney Island and our experiences. Being that this is the Brooklyn Junction, it's going to have a tri-state focus. Full disclosure, right at the beginning, I was a total fanatic for theme parks, which is different than amusement parks. Amusement parks, theme parks can be amusement parks, but amusement parks can't be theme parks. So Coney Island,
You're creating like a Venn diagram here of...
Yeah, you can put one in the middle. But yeah. I ran an operations center in Orlando for a while, Florida. We were right outside of Universal, so our go-to to take clients was, show them how cool our demonstration center was, and then head out there. And I went so many times to the Mummy Ride that the bar outside of the Mummy Ride, the bartenders got to know my name. So. Which is,
Would they name a drink after you or no?
You know what it is? That probably says something about me, but
I've been to Disney twice, and that was quite enough. It's when my children were quite small, and they enjoyed it thoroughly. The most fun thing was watching them react to the characters, and but I've had my fill of Disney. Maybe if I have grandchildren someday, I'll go back there, but.
I have no clue why it's probably why I still ski. I'm enticed by fear-inducing, edgy sort of thrilling experiences, such as roller coasters that I started at Coney Island all the way through to growing up and going to the theme parks with the kids and then later with clients. And I try to define this. It's thrills and fears generated in an automated, controlled, and mostly safe fashion. People probably go for the shows. But the fear element and the thrill element is what's ultimately enticing to me, and I think a lot of others. Having 5 or 6 beers and going on the Mummy Ride repeatedly is something I enjoy. It's so stupid. I know, I'm a child. And I wonder where this childlike escapist thrill addiction I have comes from. So, Bill, what's your first memory of amusement parks? If it includes Coney Island, which is...
Yeah. Well, we had a couple of things in Brooklyn. We had, Coney Island, which was really our version of Disney, right?
Right.
That was a big trip. Now, there was... Brooklynites have different memories of Coney Island, and because my dad's generation and before that, they always talked about steeplechase, which was gone by the time I was visiting Coney Island. I think they had a major fire there.
It burned down.
Yeah. But my dad used to take us to Astroland. The boardwalk was kind of seedy at that point, but Astroland was, I guess, okay. There were enough people there and it was pretty crowded. But Coney Island there in the 70s was pretty dicey.
Spotty and dangerous. See, I think now that you're mentioning it, there's a third category, amusement centers, where there was more oriented towards the arcade experience.
Yeah.
I mean, they still exist. I was just in Weirs Beach on a family holiday, Lake Winnipesaukee. I do that every year. My cousins are up there. And Weirs Beach is like a throwback. And it seems to me that Coney Island was the template for all different levels of this.
Yeah.
The history I have with Coney Island goes back to my father was a lifeguard there in the 40s and 50s. And so we had an affinity for it. So we spent, I think, more time on the beach because, if we had enough money to do all the rides, like the cyclone, and we spent a ton of time on the beach. And I still remember the beach as being, kind of the water murky, the
Yeah,
sand was...
that was like the same water that you had at Brighton Beach and Manhattan Beach. We never really went there. We mostly went to the Rockaways, either Reese Park or, of course, Breezy Point, which we've spoken about, Rockaways. But yeah, that was the real ocean water.
We got this 8mm of me as a baby at Coney Island, and I'm looking at myself out there, and I noticed that here I am rolling around for about 20 minutes on the towel as like a 3-year-old with no lotion and no umbrella,
no sunscreen.
And I must have been getting scorched. I remember really bad sunburn experiences in Coney Island.
You're like a walking public service announcement for melanoma prevention. Yeah.
And so Carolyn, like as I got older, she started making me apply lotion.
It's too late, Mark. The damage is done. That sunburn you caught in Coney Island in 1967 is that set the stage.
And she called me, like I was never this chubby, but I did gain some weight in the middle years there. All right. And she used to call me John Candy from Summer Rental because I totally red except for my eyes where my sunglasses were. Well, I'm always going for the heart attack red look. And you could like that kind of sunburn where you could put your finger on it and then a white ring radiates from your finger. I learned my lesson because she taught me that, there's this thing called lotion.
It rubs the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again.
I think I haven't been sunburned since I met my wife.
Well, good for you.
But, ironically, she said as a teenager, she used to sit at the beach, right? And literally put baby oil on her.
Right. Lying on a piece of aluminum foil, right?
I mean, she's like grilling. I mean, it's so stupid.
Well,
it's so stupid. She had third-degree burns once, and she's a fast learner, so she didn't do it again. She stopped that whole baby oil and baking stuff. Getting back to the amusement park theme, my first conscious memory of an amusement park, or a theme park, if you will, was the New York World's Fair. And I only remember it because I had my first Italian ice, which was actually rainbow sherbet. So I was very confused later when Rita's ices didn't taste like rainbow sherbet. But I remember being perambulated around the park in a stroller, just enjoying this fantastic treat. And as the years went on, I always kind of remembered it. And I said, you have this incredible template, which became Disney and Epcot in the future. And it's right outside Shea Stadium. The New York Mets are brand new. It's fabulous. Why did it not continue? It's been a head scratcher to me ever since. I mean, why was there no commercial reason to continue that? We should research that. Why was the World's Fair, and this thing that they established, generated an enormous amount of interest, and then done? I don't understand. Was there a reason why? And were you ever there, by the way?
Yes, I was. I remember going there twice. I remember sitting in my dad's car. I was like, we were waiting for something, and we had the radio on. And I remember hearing on the news that it was the final day of the New York World's Fair. I remember looking over at the remember they used to have those little side vent windows in the cars, and there was a sticker on there that had the World's Fair emblem on it, and it was some kind of permit sticker, the orange and blue with the globe. Yeah. But I have some pretty good memories of it. I remember there was something called the AMF monorail that Fire Park, and you could get on and off at stops. And they also distributed these very heavy-duty cardboard boxes that had a picture of the monorail on it, and you could use it as a seat. You could sit on it. It was very strong and sturdy, and you'd carry that throughout the park with you, collect souvenirs in it and stuff like that. But you could also use it as a seat.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I remember
you're 78 years old, so you remember it as an adult. I'm just kidding.
Exactly right. I was working there. No.
Step right on. Get your cardboard monorail seat souvenir collection box.
No, so we were talking about these early memories of amusement parks, and You know, I always had like a fascination with them, as you do. But there was a film I remember seeing as a young kid, and it was called Carnival of Souls. And this thing scared the living daylights out of me because it wasn't a gory horror film. It was more of a psychological horror film. And I'll just give you a very brief synopsis of it. It's about this woman who is involved in a car crash with her friends, and they drive off a bridge into the water. She's the only survivor, supposedly. But she really hasn't, in fact, survived the crash because she's kind of drifting in between reality and this other world, which is occupied by souls. Okay.
Oh, wow.
And it's very scary. And by the way, it was condemned by the Catholic Church. If you looked it up in the tablet, it had a big C next to it. I don't know. I think it was more because of this concept of the soul that they condemned it. But in any case, though, there's this recurring scene where she goes back to this abandoned amusement park where all these souls, people with this like white makeup on and the dark circles under their eyes, and they're
Wow.
dancing together, and there's this very eerie calliope music, and you got to watch it. It's a really low budget film, but I think it's a classic. It's in my top 10. And I think it's
I vaguely remember seeing it, and but there is a sort of arcanum, and you keep using that word, around the whole scary clown / amusement park.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And you just keep going back to the scenes of the abandoned amusement park, and it's just I was fascinated with it and terrified at the same time. But
Well, with fall reality, FAUX reality, very few things are scarier than an abandoned amusement park.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
well, even going down to Coney Island in the dead of winter, when everything's closed down, that was kind of a weird experience, don't you think?
That was eerie.
Yeah.
That was eerie. And we used to go there. Obviously, I went to the beach a lot. My
Right.
father would occasionally take us to Nathan's, which it would be remiss if we don't mention how incredible Nathan's was. I mean, I avoid that food, but my God, I would.
Delicious.
Two hours a big Coke. Are you kidding me? It's only 2,800 calories. Wash it down. Then have some ice cream afterwards. Oh my God. If you think about how fattening all that stuff was. But going back to the experience in Coney Island is that I remember I went on the cyclone with my dad, and I was really young. I don't know if they eventually had height requirements like 58 inches they had at Disney, being a little frightened, but loving it and begging him to take me on.
The cyclone
more and more.
Yeah.
It was like rickety, but it was safe. It was like, like it had that old school sound to it. And wasn't that funny in Woody Allen?
Oh, yeah.
He literally, in Eddie Hall, his house is underneath the cyclone.
My analyst says I exaggerate my childhood memories, but I swear I was brought up underneath the roller coaster in the Coney Island section. Maybe that accounts for my personality, which is a little nervous.
And like the pair, they would start a conversation, and then it would be, like it'd be like every time they.
Yeah. When my wife and I were first dating back in 1988, when we first met, and by the way, she is like exactly like Annie Hall, and she had never been on the cyclone, even though she was born in Brooklyn and moved to Long Island at an early age. She'd never been on the cyclone. So, well, we have to do it, So we spent an afternoon at Coney Island once, and it was great.
It was cool.
Yeah.
But I remember also the first memory I had that talked to me about amusement parks was the Our Gang Little Rascal series that was originally filmed, as I recall when I did some research, 1922 to 1944 by Hal Roach. And it was a series of comedy short films, and it was hilarious stuff. And I remember at least one or two episodes, and I was convinced they were filmed at Coney Island. Clearly, they probably were filmed somewhere in the burgeoning L.A. Film production sets of the time. But they used to be played regularly right after school. You'd come home and you'd watch these old 1930s and 1940s, 20-minute, like the early day sitcom, I guess, right?
They would actually come on around 8:30 in the morning.
Was that what it was? Yeah.
Yes. And this is why I remember it, because like, of course you had to go to school. So, and you were out the door before 8:30 on your way to school. But if you were sick, right, and you were trying to convince your mother to keep you home from school, as soon as you heard that Little Rascals theme song and you were still in your pajamas, you were home free. You were on the couch watching them, and then, whatever children's television programs were on.
The episode that it took you to some place scary, similar to that Superman Mole Man episode of the Mole Man underneath the that we mentioned in another episode. It was the three protagonists, which included Spanky, Stymie, I think, and Alfalfa.
No, it was Spanky, Alfalfa, Buckwheat, and Porky.
Okay.
And yeah, Alfalfa has a detective agency.
Oh, is that what it is?
Right. And what happens is they're I don't know, I forget who they're going after, but they wind up jumping into a crate, and the crate is being shipped to some spook house, amusement park thing. And the crate gets opened up, and the four of them, Alfalfa, Spanky, and Porky and Buckwheat are inside this spook house. And it's pretty, I remember it. It was pretty scary.
I just remember it was like they had a skeleton, and I remember these are like primordial fears.
Yeah.
Like these are when I was a child. I remember, that episode was a little frightening, and I remember that they always go headed towards the buzzsaw.
Right.
And
they were in
that image was stuck. Like they were going to at some point. They were going to get you do not have a buzzsaw come within inches of children in a real Coney Island attraction, right? But I was convinced. Yeah, right. I was convinced when I would walk around, my father would walk around shaking his head. He was upset at how it had deteriorated in the 1970s. And it was all these closed attractions.
Right.
Like, again, this is, it could be a foggy memory, but I remember boarded up attractions all around Coney Island. And I always thought inside in there or something, or there was something. There's like, if you opened it and you would be on a ride that literally had a buzzsaw almost, that existed in there.
Yeah.
So there's a built-in mythology already about the old school spook houses and how threatening they really were, which was obviously just a Hollywood invention of the R Gang crew. When you grew into adulthood, got like at the peak time of my, early adulthood, it was the Wild West.
Yeah, it was pretty seedy. Yeah, I remember going out there with my buddies once. We had gone to Beefsteak Charlie's and, downed a bunch.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we had dinner. We downed a bunch of beers, and then we went down to the boardwalk, and we did go on the Cyclone, but it was seedy. But you know what? It's kind of like Times Square. I think yeah, no, they ruined it. So it's like, just like Coney Island. I kind of like the seediness of it. The gypsies and the, kind of cool. I kind of like Times Square when it was seedy,
My kids liked Coney Island, but they were totally satisfied with, I think, Adventureland, Action Park, whatever it was out here.
Adventureland was the one on 110, right? In Farmingdale.
It's like sort of, it's like a low rent version of Coney Island, right? I mean, there's the beach.
But yeah, that was fun. I took my kids there, although there have been some incidents of, amusement-related tragedies, if you want to call it that. Amusing tragedy. But there were other places like in the metro area that were just that were pretty good. I mean, there was Rye Playland in Westchester, and we used to. That was a big Catholic school thing. You would go to Rye Beach or Rye Playland, and I know it. And at my Catholic school, they would take the altar boys and the choir girls at the end of the year. ride Playland. And their big attraction there was the Dragon Coaster. That was their roller coaster. They had kind of a spook house thing called the Old Mill, where you'd get in these little boats and you would go through this, array of horrifying, exhibits, displays.
So there was one that was, that I started researching this, and there was one where there's actual photos of people flying out of upside down roller coasters. Action Park or something in New Jersey, where the safety protocols and the compliance protocols were not fully enhanced, and so that shut it down. There was 3 reasons, and the first reason was bad parking. Second reason was the rides were always broken. And then the third reason is multiple deaths. The safety protocols were not fully in place, so all these sorts of, and when I started looking, they've got live action photos of guys getting thrown off some sort of low rent version of steeplechase,
Right.
And but there was safety protocols around, and there's always these rumors that Disney has a danger and death protocol team, and literally if something happens, if they can keep it squashed, they literally, take care of the injury or the problem, and they do it quickly, shut off the segment of where the ride would be.
Right. And then they hustle the injured people into those underground tunnels, so no one can see them.
Right. And then they basically open up a briefcase of $1 million. And they give it to the unsuspecting victims. Oh, but Uncle Joe, he had a heart attack on one of those hot dogs. My father's was a lifeguard, and he won a couple of awards there. There was the one where when he was a rookie, and there was a mobster that had been thrown off a boat, and my father there was floaters. He says he was on the first year you're a lifeguard there, and he's 18 years old. The first year you're a lifeguard there, right? You have to do the floater duty. And back in the day, right, there were floaters fairly frequently. I spoke to my brother about this. There were floaters where, they were mobsters. They used to say, "Oh, there's just a guy that partied and fell off the boat." There was always that was how those deaths were ruled. Over drinking, falling off the boat. Now, how many people are falling off boats these days? I don't think there's as many, right? And so my father gets assigned this duty and sees this chubby floater, big fat guy, and he's freaking out that he's got to pull the guy in. And so he goes to swim to the guy, and I don't know if they knew one way or the other. He gets out there and he sees the guy straight up dead. And his boss says, "Bring him in." So my father grabs him by the strings of his hair, and his scalp comes off and his brain.
Gnarly.
Oh, it's so gross. And my father starts puking and drowning at the same time.
Oh my
and
God.
all the lifeguards jump in, save my father, and then the guy brings a pole out and pulls the body in, laughing. I busted Mike Cherry that day, which meant he retrieved his first dead body.
Baptism by
and
fire.
He had something like 45 saves over 4 years and got an award and stuff. And there was 3 young children one time, and he's blowing the whistle and yelling at the top of his lungs to a megaphone, right? Not like the old plastic megaphones, not a electronic one. And
like a Rudy Valley type megaphone, no?
Rudy Valley screaming. And they just start dancing their way to death.
Bouncing with the waves.
They start bouncing up and down, and he's saying he's a freaking... So he has to run out. Basically, these 3 little kids almost took him to an early grave. I would not exist, Bill.
You wouldn't?
Right? Yeah. As he told it, he got them to these rocks, and they're holding on for dear life, and the waves are stirring up and spitting the salt water in his face, and they were drowning. They were going to be done, and he saved their lives. They're holding on to him. He's holding on to the rock, desperately holding on to these things, till a boat came out and got them, like a little, a lifeguard boat. And he said, the fear of God passed through me that day. He always had a fond remembrance of being at Coney Island, and as do I in the history of things. You know? I mean, it was fun to go. I know Nathan's, I don't know if is there any difference between the Nathan's hot dog in Coney Island than the one you see in like one of these malls that you see now?
I don't know, but they
Is
just had the hot dog eating contest over the weekend.
Did they really?
Yeah. I just, it's the annual 4th of July weekend hot dog eating contest.
I could eat 4. How many could you eat?
60.
I'd be so ill. But anyways, one of the things we didn't mention was Palisades Park.
Right. And that's New Jersey. Yes.
Right? It was a hit song.
They did.
A hit song about Palisades Park. And I remember going there. I think they had this huge saltwater pool, right? And it was a wave pool or just a pool?
It was,
I don't remember.
It might have been a wave pool. Yeah. Because, that was part of their well, there were 2 songs. There was a theme song for, Palisades Amusement Park. It was Come On Over, enjoy the waves in the pool, swing all day and after dark and all that. But then there was the other one, Palisades Park by Freddie Boom Boom Cannon. Yeah.
There's a somewhat broad range between how these theme parks and amusement parks will push the fear factor. If you go to Disney, for instance, there's like a 6 out of 10 in terms of fear level, except for the roller coasters, which, they're pretty intense. I lost 2 cell phones, by the way, in Disney. I'm not kidding. Coming out, like, how stupid can you be? You go on the Hulk ride, right? And you put your phone in your breast pocket. You go upside down, Bill. You go upside down. Boom, hit my nose, went down. And then I did it 2 years later. You'd have thought I'd have I think I was the reason they put a rule that you must secure all your stuff in a little locker.
Right.
Because they had so many people call up. And I saw it on the track, and I was trying to get the Disney people to coordinate stopping the Universal people, because I used to go on the Hulk ride, right? Get them to go get my cell phone. I mean, it was the major cause for me losing cell phones in my life was theme parks, right? So ridiculously stupid. The Disney's always going to be at a 6 out of 10. You're never going to be totally frightened. Universal used to ratchet it up to like a 7 out of 10, right? And then the independent haunted houses went to 8.5 out of 10.
And then there's the New York City subway.
Yes, that's 10 out of 10. Well, on that note, we'll close this episode down, part 1 of our look at Coney Island and amusement parks in the tri-state area. And we look forward to digging into some wild stories about John Wilkes Booth and Mr. Disney himself in our next episode of Amusement Parks and Coney Island on the Brooklyn Junction. Well, thank you, Bill.
Thanks so much for joining us today, and we hope that you are amused. And please like and subscribe. And if you have any corrections or comments, we welcome them. We're not going to listen to them, but we welcome them.
No, we listen to all feedback and take it in and try to learn from our experiences because we're emotionally mature. Well, thanks for joining us, and please, as always, comment, like, subscribe, listen, and share it with your friends and family. Just Sliding Away, written, recorded, and produced by William Turley.